Clara is one of the cutest characters in Honkai style Rayos. But besides being charismatic and barefoot, she has a unique playstyle, and she hits hard. Or at least Svarog hits really hard. Clara completely relies on her counterattacks, making her a mix between a tank and a damage dealer. So let me explain how you make your Clara one of the best characters. The key to Clara gameplay is her traits, precisely her talent. Her talent puts Clara under Svarog's protection, which will reduce any damage taken by 10%. Additionally, Svarog adds the mark of counter to that same enemy and performs a counterattack dealing physical damage based on Clara's attack. It is worth mentioning that Svarog's counterattack is a follow-up attack and receives all bonuses and effects of one. Also, there is no cooldown or limit to the number of counterattacks. This mechanic is the key to Clara being a powerhouse. It allows her to attack several times in the same turn, something that will be critical in the late game, given that many are limited in the number of turns. In her skill, Clara performs a bombardment between all her opponents, but in addition, opponents who have the mark of counter will receive extra physical damage and finally remove the mark. Her ultimate supplements her kit, as whenever it is active, it reduces the incoming damage for 2 turns. Once the ultimate is active, any ally that is hit will trigger the counterattack with an even higher damage multiplier and splash damage. The amplifier remains active until it's triggered twice. Keeping your ultimate up will be one of the best ways to ensure that your counterattacks do some serious damage while staying alive. But luckily for Clara, this will be really easy. As you already know, you can recover your energy by receiving damage or hitting your opponent, which her counterattacks also count. That way, you'll constantly have your ultimate available. So far, it is clear that you have 2 conditions essential to maximizing Clara's damage. The first, she must be the focus of all attacks, and the second, she needs to survive them. The ultimate and her talent will help you in surviving, but it is her technique that enables her to be the focus of all attacks. After Clara casts her technique, she automatically attacks all opponents and increases her aggro for 2 turns. Her 2 bonus abilities will increase her survivability, as they will help her endure against debuffs and crowd control. And her last extra ability will increase the counter's damage by 30%. While looking among her traces, her priority must always be this way. Since your ultimate will constantly be up and help you survive, it should be your focus. And second comes her talent, which will be her primary source of damage. Finally, her skill will help to offer some extra damage by using the mark of counter. Her basic attack will be in a much lower priority, as it is rarely used except when you need to recover some skill points. As much as Clara needs survivability, she's not a tank. She's a damage dealer, or at least a sub-damage dealer. In this case, she will always prioritize the attack, crit rate and crit damage. The main difference is that Clara doesn't need to use speed. Her damage is concentrated in her counterattack. She won't need any extra speed to attack several times per turn. Defense and HP, while interesting, rely heavily on having some good substats. Her best set is Champion of Streetwise Boxing, which with 2 pieces already increase physical damage by 10%. With 4 pieces, it increases your attack by 5% for each hit taken, and can stack up to 5 times. If you don't have some good pieces of Champion of Streetwise Boxing, a good alternative would be Musketeer of Wild Weed, which also will help increase your attack. For your ornaments, the best one is Inner Salsodo, which increases your crit rate by 8%, but also increases your follow-up attack by 15% if you have more than 50% crit rate. Clara has many different options for light cones. The 3-star ones are easy to rank. Collapsing Sky is the best, as it is the only one that continuously affects damage. However, it only improves the skill and basic attack. But things start to get problematic when we talk about 4 stars. All of them can be used, but which one would be the best in slot for us free to play? I'll show you my beautiful Excel so we can discuss the numbers better. Let's say your basic attack is 1000, with 50% in crit damage and 30% in crit rate. Numbers are just fictitious just to create a scenario. In these conditions, let's say we have a 5-turn battle, which we can consider to be short, but usually when we get to late game, we have a high restrictions on the number of turns, where in each turn we have an attack and a counter attack. And just to be clear, we are comparing all icons with them being at level 80, and also they are not superimposed. Right off the bat, we can rule out Wolf or Time, since Clara is not a character that constantly uses damage over time. Her Wolf's Light Cone would be the most welcome you. The biggest problem with this Light Cone is that it doesn't increase your damage of your counter attack. Plus, your counter attack doesn't apply mischievous stacks. Under these conditions, our maximum damage after 5 turns with 2 crits would be around 18,000. Right after, it would be Under the Blue Sky, which has a steadier outcome, but it only increases your attack by 12%, but even with the increase in crit rate and an extra crit, it would only reach 19,000 damage. It is then that we start talking about the light cones with the greatest potential. And the first one is a Secret Vow. This light cone increases your damage by 20%, and if you have less life proportionally to your opponents, it increases another 20%. However, since this is a risky gameplay, I'll consider that we constantly have more health than our opponents. In this case, we would produce around 19.5 thousand damage. Being then the best 4-star, Nowhere to Run. With 24% increase in attack, it could reach 20.8 thousand damage. In addition, it offers an excellent sustain, since every time you defeat an opponent, you recover part of your health. The only problem is that Nowhere to Run can only be obtained through Battle Pass, and among the light cones offered, there are better ones, which greatly limits the chance of you acquiring it. So if you are going to focus on 4 stars, you have to balance between Nowhere to Run and a Secret Vow. A Secret Vow you're going to probably superimpose, and Nowhere to Run you're hardly going to superimpose. But you still have another free-to-play option among the 5 stars. On the fall of the Aeon is a mix between a 5-star and a 4-star. It has a base stats of a 4-star, but at the same time is a little bit stronger than a 4-star. Although it takes time to start dealing some serious damage, its stacks grows even without our counterattacks, which allows us to quickly see the impact of the light cone. Also, if you apply Weakness Break, it increases your attack by another 12%. The biggest advantage is that it can be purchased from Herta's store, which also allows it to be easily superimposed. Finally, as you might expect, the Bastion slot is something irreplaceable, which is the light cone made for Clara. It increases your attack by 24%, and in addition to restoring your health by 8% every time you attack or get hit, and boosts your attack by an additional 24% for 1 more turn. Clara hits pretty hard even without her Eidolons, but there are more of a way to turn her from a normal character to something overpowered. Her first Eidolon makes her Mark of Revenge to no longer be removed after attacking the opponent, making the damage buff be permanent. Her second Eidolon increases her attack by 30% for 2 turns whenever Clara uses her ultimate. This is a big improvement, as Clara will constantly use her ultimate. Her third and fifth Eidolon increases her skill levels. On the fourth, after Clara receives any attack, she reduces the damage taken by an additional 30% until the end of the next turn, making her even tankier. Her sixth Eidolon is disgusting. Now, your counterattack will no longer be triggered just for you. There is a 50% chance that Svarog will perform a counterattack and apply a Mark of Counter whenever your allies are hit. Also, it increases the number of enhanced counters from 2 to 3. Before selecting who will be part of the composition, it is important to understand if your team synergizes with Clara's gameplay. She needs to take hits to increase her damage output. Therefore, you need to avoid any other character that can remove your aggro, and you need a really good healer on your team. To avoid losing aggro, you must remove any characters that have some kind of aggro bonus. For example, remove any preservation characters. Fire MC and Gepard have a greater aggro bonus and have skills that taunt your opponents. The only exception would be March 7th, who can use her skill to shoot and increase the aggro of another character. But at the same time, her ultimate freezes your opponents which at the same time doesn't have the same opportunity of hitting Clara, so diminishing your damage output. Based on my experience, Clara works more as a sub-tank, sub-damage dealer, so she requires a great healer. You can use Bailu or Natasha. Bailu allows her to be more aggressive and revive her when you are too greedy. Natasha is best when there is a risk of receiving a debuff. To complete your composition, you need a support and a damage dealer. I prefer Tingyu, Pella or Bronya for support, since Asta's speed bonus won't be needed for Clara. For damage dealers, select those that focus on single target damage, such as Zila or Danhan, since Clara's kit has a lot of AoE. That's it guys, do you already have a Clara? How has been your experience? And don't forget to like and subscribe, and see ya!